Hello, I'm Noir Nerd, and I thought today I'd talk about, from a Console.log, about my programming nightmares, which is to say projects that I worked on in the past or been involved with, whichever one way or another turned into or started off as and just been nightmares. So there's one that always sticks out in my mind very succinctly, and to be fair, I'm not going to mention the companies that I was working for obviously, but the company I was working for was I don't know, let me give you some context. So this is the sort of design agency. They were like working on adverts, graphic design, web design. They had a program of rage quit, it sounded like, from what I could tell. So they'd had a program who'd either burned out or rage quit from this role. So I went to the interview and they stressed that I needed to know PHP, which I did a little bit. But when I say I know PHP, I mean I was a little bit familiar with WordPress editing, PHP, WordPress, child themes and that sort of thing, and not really a PhD developer, which I did say during the interview from what I remember. But this is many years ago as well. But anyway, not that I know PHP now. I don't know. I'm a JavaScript guy. I don't know PHP, but really. But anyway, so basically, yeah. So I'm there. I get to this. I get assigned my desk and everything else. I get the job. Like I said, I'm pretty sure I said I didn't know PHP that well, but I got it anyway somehow. I guess they just didn't have that many candidates or something. But I got it, and then the first day or two, I was just obviously getting used to everything, getting integrated in the systems, and then they passed me this project, and they said I had 1 week to do it, and it's hard to remember because obviously I didn't really understand PHP at the time, so maybe it was my own, no ego here, maybe it was my own just pure ineptitude at that point with PHP, but it made no sense whatsoever. From what I remember, it was some sort of internal system program that was built with sort of like a bootstrap front end, and that's all I remember about it. So I only remember the front end part of it. And yeah, it was from what I remember, it was just a mess, and I had like a week to fix it all. So I mean, long story short, I didn't. From what I remember, it was just like spaghettified. There was loads of these random comments in the code. I can't really remember, but it was a bit of a nightmare. So let's think of another one, at least a challenging scenario. So I used to work for a large charity, and that could potentially sometimes get quite nightmarish, because there was one time when I actually definitely did. We had a huge data migration. It's more the IT team that did that. It was really weird because I was like a web developer and web support and IT support. No, web support really. So I was in the media team, and the IT was a separate team, which is a bit odd really, but whatever. It was what it was. But the IT team had to migrate over. I think it was something like, even decades worth of data into a new system. Yeah, that was not fun, I don't think. It wasn't really involving me, but day to day I had to deal with a lot of really old .NET websites, which was occasionally quite traumatic. That's about the only nightmarish part of that. That was quite a good role actually. I was just there for his maternity cover for a year, and it was quite it was quite like a maintenance IT job, really, sort of like maintaining these legacy code bases, sometimes developing new websites, which was quite fun, a little bit of a challenge at the time. Mostly just like informational sites, nothing too complicated, but it was that. One I had that wasn't a nightmare, but was one of my first projects I ever really did. It wasn't really a nightmare, but it was just like me creating a website with accessibility at the core. Not so much a nightmare, more of a learning curve, really. That was literally the first job I ever had out of university, actually. That's just created a. It's just a static site, actually. Just an index. Index. It's just HTML pages with CSS. I don't really know what I was doing at that point. It's just a bunch of HTML pages. I hard coded the content. Had some JavaScript for like changing the text sizes and stuff like that, and switching style sheets and yada yada yada, and changing the styles. Well, but I mean, for the time, it was probably, I felt like it was cool. What other nightmares can I conjure up? Oh God, freelance work. That's easier. Obviously, easy territory to conjure up nightmares. There was this one client I had who basically paid me about the equivalent of £35 for a week's worth of work, or for I don't know why I even took on this. I was desperate at the time, but it was a bad point in my life. I was sort of just drifting quite a lot in Sheffield, where I used to live, and I've been searching for jobs on Indeed, like just front end web dev, blah blah blah, and then I found this like posting on there which was like freelance web developer, casual time, like sort of remote work. I was like, yeah, great, okay. So I did that. They just wanted basically like a brochure site. So I did the one. I did it in WordPress. Simple brochure site. Listed what their services were, a little bit about the team. Bada bing, bada bosh. And this client was ridiculously, for the amount of money they were paying me, which was not much. They paid me like 35 quid for the whole thing, which is ridiculous. Like, even if it's just a WordPress site, usually you're going to get at least, I don't know, 150 quid or something. But it was just a ridiculous situation where push out the first iteration of the site, and then there'd be, anyway, it just didn't. And it was really weird as well, because this particular client promised me a big like chunk of money, £3,000, and an app development after it. Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe I didn't do well enough. Maybe I did, but I did do what they wanted. I created a search engine for them on the site and blah blah blah, searchable posts and stuff like that. Obviously, I can't go into details about who it was. It's not really appropriate, but I think I delivered what I needed. But they're just, I don't know. It can be a funny one dealing with people when you're dealing with, especially when, I mean, because front end's obviously sort of the midpoint between design and programming and engineering, really. So it can be quite challenging in that sense, that you have to be mindful of your client's needs, but also have a sort of role of knowing also what's best from an engineering perspective as well. It's challenging. It can be really hard. I've even heard back-end engineers say that, like, they find like being a really good front-end developer is quite hard, which I never understand, because I always think being a back-end engineer must be so difficult. Like, but I don't know. That's what it is, I guess. Any other nightmares I can think of? Not so much. Well, this wasn't a nightmare, but I burnt out on one project hard a while ago. So it's like an app for like parental controls and stuff. It had a lot of different features, a lot of different moving parts, and was working on it like quite late, every night, every day, for even weekends sometimes, for I guess 3 or 4 months. And that was just a traditional burnout. I just burned out on it after eventually I just hit a block and just went. So that can happen if you're not careful. That app actually crashed and burned as well. It was yeah, just a lot. Well, it's another story. I won't get into that, but the app just it got to a certain point, and then all the things that could go wrong. Not with the app itself. The app itself was pretty stable, but yeah, I don't know. So I don't know what's the moral of this story. Legacy code bases can be really nightmare. Part of your job as a front-end developer, I think, is just going to be inheriting code, so you have to be ready for that. And you have to. But working with other people is a good practice to get into. I mean, it's just going to be part of something you're going to be doing anyway. So you can't always be the individual coder just doing things your own way. And it's not even healthy probably to do that, because you just develop bad habits. Maybe you don't always do. And it's good to see things from another person's perspective too. So there's that, I think. Yeah, there's a few of my nightmares. Whatever. I'm sure I can think of some other nightmarish things. Oh, I just thought of another one. Well, this is a company I worked for a while actually, and I'll preface this by saying this is actually quite a lot my own fault in truth, why this one went a bit bad. But long story short, I was working for a company. I was enjoying like the sort of interface design work I had to do for them. I was redesigning basically redesigning their client-facing page, and we were also working on an app for another developer. And this is my own fault. I mean, I'll hold my hand up for this one. But sorry, I got to a stage with the client-facing sort of like landing page site where I was quite happy with it, and they said they were happy with it, but they didn't use it. So I sort of felt after a month or two that my work was just wasted. It's just an ego thing, really, to be honest. And then I lost interest in the app development a bit, I guess. And the app was a bit. I mean, I was just a bit crap at that time, to be honest. This is 6 years ago or something. I was just a bit of a crap developer at that time, so I didn't really know what I was doing enough. It was mostly just like I just didn't know what I was doing enough. It was probably too. It was basically like a sysdev role, but yeah, I just wasn't experienced enough for it. So I was there for quite a while actually. I was there for just short of a year, but it was just yeah, it was weird. It was like a sort of office job sometimes and mixed remote role as well. And I'm being honest, like I became complacent in that role, and then eventually just became lazy, and then I just left. That's a bad reflection of me. Not every job you have is perfect. Not every code base you get into you're going to really gel with. It's just part of life, I think. It's like, you take the rough with the smooth. And programming is not easy, so it takes time to build up that experience. Like it's weird though, because I mean the path I went on was quite odd. I sort of like got my first few jobs, which were like IT tech support and a bit of dev on the side, and I had 2 roles like that for 2 years straight out of college. So I had one, and then when that job ended, because it was like a future jobs fund job thing, the government funded job role. Then I got another job straight after that based on that previous role, and I had like a database admin role before that as well, but that was boring, and I won't go into that really because it's just a boring temp job. Then I sort of like went into e-learning dev, did that for a while in London, and bits and bobs in between, and then yeah, I've had a few dev roles in London, mostly just front end dev stuff. I had a role in Manchester for a while. I should talk about that actually. So when I was in my first introduction to React was for working for a creative agency, which was I think 5 years ago now, maybe 4, I can't remember. And probably longer than that, I can't remember exactly. That was that was a learning curve, and it was really useful actually. But I basically, again, I holding my hand up, I just didn't level up and fast enough, I don't think, in that role. Dev is a hard business. Like if you really don't like dive into it and really dedicate some time to understanding what's going on, you can really lose it quite fast. Well, to be honest, I actually did alright in that role, this React role that I'm talking about now, and it wasn't really a nightmare. I actually learned a lot from that role, but it didn't work out. I've actually talked about my bipolar in one of the other videos. I'll link to it somewhere below. Basically, that role went to shit because of my bipolar disorder. Basically, my bipolar just flared up quite badly, and I just couldn't manage it. But I did learn about React, which is really useful because that's what I do today. So just to end this on a positive note, because obviously it's just saying coding nightmares, like, you know. But this is the positive note. All of these things, having all of these experiences as a developer, and having all these even negative experiences on weird code bases and spaghetti code and things I don't understand and blah blah blah, and not even just spaghetti code. Like I said, this is a 50-50 thing. Some things, some of these nightmares have been legacy problems that I picked up from someone else. Well, half the time it's just me not knowing enough. You're always learning, so yeah, I hope that's been interesting. That's my tales from the crypt of developer nightmares. Console.log vlog. Like and subscribe if you want to see me talk about anything else. Please let me know below, and I'll do that. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. Been No Nerd. Like and subscribe.